and welcome to How China Works, part of the Migration Media Network. I'm your host, YINGYING.
And I'm your other host, Brendan Davis.
And we're glad you joined us to learn how China works.
Every week on the show, we'll look at one aspect of Chinese culture. And every weekday, Monday through Friday, we will do a really condensed deep dive into one topic specifically.
We will cover things ranging from business to travel, living and working, socializing and dating. Much more.
We'll start macro and go micro, looking at things from both of our perspectives. Mine as a Westerner based in Beijing.
And mine as a Chinese living in San Francisco. So, to get us started, this week's subject is the Chinese business dinner. This is one of the most important things to master if you're trying to do business here. But the same general rules apply even in social or family occasions, so this information will be really useful even if you're traveling or meeting friends here.
There are lots of moving parts to consider, and we'll get into lots of them this week. Things such as who sits where, what and how to order your food, how to have a proper conversation, and of course, who pays. Hint, if you have to ask that question, it's probably not you.
Today, we will do a deep dive on what is probably the most important and tricky aspect of the business dinner to master. What's today's specific topic?
Drinking. Today, we're going to talk all about drinking.
That's right, but not just any kind of drinking. Today, we're looking at the very specific type of drinking done at a Chinese business dinner. We'll look at where and when this tradition started, and it varies in different situations and regions, and why it is important to get it right, even if you don't drink yourself.
I never knew not drinking was even an option, Yingying.
Oh, there's so much to learn. Stay tuned and hang tight. Welcome back. So, Brendan, let's start with the why. Why do you think that drinking is such an important part of Chinese business culture?
Oh, I know this one.
Well, surprise and amaze me with your insights then.
Okay, so no pressure, but I'll try. I had this old Chinese business colleague, and we became really good friends. And at the end of one night, we were both really drunk, and he wanted to confess something to me. And he basically said through our interpreter and through, our broken languages with each other, he asked me, do you know why Chinese drink so much at business dinners? And I said, well, I think it's so that you can let your guard down and be really, really candid, right? And, it gives you a chance to be emotional in a way that's safe. And he said, that's true, but there's another reason. I'm like, why is that? And he said, so that the next day when we sober up, if we said something that we regret, we can always just say, forget that. I was drunk.
That's funny. But the reality is that business drinking culture is really just an outgrowth of the drinking rituals that we have done with friends and family on social occasions and holidays for centuries. And I actually have a funny story of my own related to that.
Yeah? You have a drinking story, Yingying?
I might surprise you with more than once before we're done today. The story starts from when I was a little girl, much younger than you think. My father is a quiet man, and he doesn't like to drink much. But as elder of the home, it was his duty to lead certain toasts and honor the other guests by drinking with them when they toasted him. So during one spring festival lunch, when I was about 10 years old, my father had all he wanted to drink, and he called me over from the kids' table to help him out. Normally, the kids and the grown-ups stay separate, with the elder leading rounds of toast. My uncle, his young brother, is very social and is more natural toaster. Many of the general toasts usually follow him. But as a host, my father was expected to lead certain toasts, so when it came time, my dad called me over to help him out. It's a show of respect to really finish the glass, so I wanted to help, gave my dad the best face possible. So I was determined to empty the glass with each toast, and I did.
Awesome.
I'd drink 1两, then 2两, then glass was refilled again. It's hard to say no in such an occasion, you know that, right? After this first adventure, I went to sleep for the entire afternoon. While everybody else is playing mahjong, I was passed out. People say, where's Yingying? Yingying is drunk. So after this first adventure at 10 years old, I did for the next 10 years until I went off to school. I got a lot of practice.
Oh, I had no idea you could handle your liquor so well.
Well, I guess that involves surprises.
Let me ask you, what is Yiliang and Arliang?
Yiliang is about 50 grams and Arliang is about 100 grams.
And those are the different measurements on the glass, right?
Right. Liang
okay.
is the typical way when Chinese say.
So you're draining actually like 100 milligrams at once, or milliliters.
Yeah.
Wow. Something else that's surprising to consider is that nowadays baijiu is super strong, and business dinners usually involve drinking so much of it that I honestly don't know how any of us get work done. Many people don't speak very clearly after about an hour or two in my experience. Was it always like this?
That's a good point. Baijiu is often called Chinese white wine, but the baijiu you drink today is much stronger than wine, of course. In terms of alcohol content, now it's basically liquor. But baijiu used to be much more delicate and gentle, closer to a light white wine, and you could drink a lot of it before becoming seriously impaired. It was just enough to loosen people's inhibitions and get them talking warmly with each other.
Ah, so you mean the point wasn't always to get sloppy drunk?
Not at all. In fact, the rituals of sharing the drink were more important than the effect of it, and they usually still are. The act of sharing brings closeness, and the regional differences in drinking help further increase the special feeling. Did you know there are different ways to share baijiu?
Yes, I actually do. I've experienced this a little bit. For instance, here in Beijing, it's more of the traditional business drinking culture, and the leader in most situations, of course, is the host, of the leader is the first person to make a toast, and no one drinks before that person. And then there's kind of a ritualized order of toast depending on how formal the occasion is. But basically, it's the raising of the glass and everybody drinks. That happens a few times. And then you get into later in the evening where individual people are toasting other individual people, and that goes on until the wee hours. Now, a place where it's a bit different, though, is in Anyang. Do you know Anyang?
Yeah, it's close to my hometown, Kaifeng. It's in central China, right?
Exactly. And I understand it's a former capital. It's an ancient capital city here. And in Anyang, I learned that they drink and they toast you to drink in threes.
Threes?
That's right. So what they do is whenever it's time to toast somebody, the very first glass is raised, and the person leading the toast drinks that one to clear the glass. Then the glass is refilled, and that second one is the one that you drink with them. And then they also drink a third one to honor you with the cherry on top. It's like a little extra honoring at the end to have that third. And as the night goes on, you're drinking all three drinks together, which is kind of intense. And actually, yeah, I was in at least one dinner where instead of the little glasses, we were using the pitchers.
Oh.
Times three.
Oh,
And the waiters had platters with the bottles to refill the pitchers. It was rough. I'm amazed that I'm here to tell you this. But regardless of where you travel, it's very important. If you do drink alcohol, there's a lot of pride in being able to hold your baijiu and still maintain your composure. These people I'm talking about in Anyang, they were getting a taxi home, of course, but they were absolutely holding this liquor. So what happens, though, if you don't drink, right? If you do not drink, are you doomed to fail in Chinese business if you're a teetotaler?
Actually, that word contains the answer to your question. If someone doesn't or cannot drink, like a pregnant woman, for instance, then it's perfectly acceptable to substitute tea or juice or anything else you want to drink, really, in place of wine. You can also just stop drinking if you've been drinking but had enough. There are ways to do this and be considered polite while still respecting your hosts.
I'm glad you mentioned this. How does respect factor into all of this?
Drinking has a very special place in Chinese culture. You're right. It helps Chinese to let their hair down, like you might say, to reveal the inner selves with safety and comfort. It lets you become their gummer.
I'd have heard that word, yeah, gummer.
Yeah, you call it a bro, actually.
Right.
But it has much deeper meaning than that. For one thing, drinking has been at the root of art and creative expression like poetry and music for 5,000 years. So, in one sense, drinking helps people to appreciate art and each other more by lowering inhibitions and by walking in footsteps of those who created the culture too. And a bigger meaning for the act of drinking was actually explained to me by a top executive or company everyone knows here.
I think I know, you told me offline. I'll keep that private, but it's somebody people would have heard of.
Yeah. In traditional Chinese medicine, drinking a little baijiu every day is considered to make your body stronger. So it's seen as a positive thing for health. This man lists drinking as one of his top 4 hobbies.
So drinking is a hobby.
Of course. He explained that since baijiu is made from the grain of the earth by the labor of man, it shows respect from the agricultural rules of society and puts you in a better harmony with nature.
Wow, that gives it a lot of context. That part about lowering inhibitions is what my old business colleague said that I mentioned earlier. But it's interesting to hear the business leader's reasoning behind his drinking hobby. Sounds like a rationalization for alcoholism to me, but I'm not one to judge. The funny thing, of course, is that more Americans can relate to this than they're maybe even aware. For instance, when I was growing up, at least, many American college kids experienced various binge drinking rituals themselves, like the beer bong.
What in the world is a beer bong?
Well, a beer bong has 3 parts. One part is a funnel. Do you know what's a funnel in Chinese?
Funnel, 漏斗.
And it's attached to a hose, like a piece of tubing, right?
It's like 管儿.
Okay. So, and the third component is a alcoholic teenager. And so what you do is it's a little complicated. You can search online to see how the math and the physics work. But basically, you hold the funnel lower than the other end of the hose, and then you normally have a friend help you. This is a very social thing. You need a friend to help you. And they pour 2 or 3 beers into the funnel, and they slowly raise the funnel for the hose to accommodate more beer. But what you do then is you lower the whole thing and you put the hose to your mouth, the end of it, and then you raise the funnel all at once and then you drink. And so it funnels 2 or 3 beers down your throat kind of all at once.
Kind of by gravity, right?
Pretty much, yes.
So there are ritualized occasions when Westerners drink a lot too, right?
Exactly. Today, groups of friends who really want to party might go out and do a lot of shots, for instance, which is the closest thing to the Chinese drinking style. But I think that for the most part, the biggest difference between drinking in the West and the East is that in the West, it's more individualized and doesn't really have so many of the structured rituals of the East.
Do people do toasts?
Yeah, people might do a toast or two during a formal or semi-formal dinner. But throughout the meal, people mostly go at their own pace. And also, we don't all have to agree to drink the same thing necessarily. Like, you can have a beer, I could have a scotch, maybe we share a bottle of wine, or maybe everybody drinks water. Our way of respecting each other is to let everyone do their own thing, not to force people into one way of drinking or eating or enjoying their meal.
So it sounds like there's no one right way to drink in the West. Is there a wrong way?
The only really wrong way is drinking too much, honestly, meaning more than you can handle. That is frowned on in the West, and that's why the Chinese business drinking culture can be so hard to understand or adapt to.
Well, hopefully we help people understand a little more today.
I hope so too. So I never knew just how deeply the roots of the business dinner drinking traditions ran, Yingying.
Absolutely, and there's so many other related topics we can cover to help the process too, right?
Exactly. Like, say, where to sit, who eats first, and the most exciting one, where are we going and what happens with everybody after dinner.
You mean KTV?
You know it.
Well, you have all that and more to look forward to this week on the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the show in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, and if you really liked what you heard, you can rate us, give us a nice review, or join our virtual community online via the link in the show notes.
Okay, thanks again for listening. I'm Yingying Li.
And I'm Brendan Davis. See you tomorrow to learn more about how China works.